You think you own me, but you don't. You think you can destroy me. You can't. Your labels do not contain me. Your lies do not intimidate me. I will not be less than what I was created to be, and I will not run in fear. Time and time again, you've held me down, but not today. Today, I win the battle. Today, you run from me, because I am strong. I am courageous. I am an overcomer.
Hey, good morning once again, Pathways. It's good to be with you this morning. It's been good so far, hasn't it? Listen, we're going to kind of finish strong here with the last little while we have together. And I'm super pumped. We're starting this brand new series, as Adam said, called Overcomer. And it's going to kind of carry with us through the month of July. And so don't miss a single week. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to try and kick it off strong here this morning. I'm super pumped to begin this series because I think it's going to help us break free from some of the stuff, some of the junk that sort of keeps us captive, like prisoners, some of that hidden stuff, you know. And I'm excited, and we actually expect and anticipate more stories like we just saw on the screens to even come from this series as we sort of overcome obstacles together. Now, I don't know if you'd agree with me, but for me, the struggle is real. Like life's struggle is real. Like whether you've been following Jesus for like forever, or maybe you are new to following Jesus, or maybe you're here today and you would say, I really don't know if I follow Jesus. I'm not sure I believe. I'm not sure I'm really there. And you've maybe never put your faith in Jesus. And that's okay. We're really glad that you're here today. But I think we all would agree that we all can struggle with overcoming some of those things that creep up in our lives like over and over again. So here's what this series is not. This series is not designed just for like our bad day or our bad week. Now, we all have them, right? We're gonna tackle some of the stuff that continues to kind of creep up, show up over and over again, and hopefully break free, as the bumper just kind of showed us, and shatter through some of those hidden stuff that kind of overcome our lives. But with the power of the gospel and what Jesus has done, we can literally overcome these issues. And so it's gonna be fun. So maybe once and for all. Now, chances are, you and I have had a time in our life where you're like, my life's pretty good. And maybe you're here today and you're feeling like, life's good. I got no worries, right? You're feeling good. Like my life is like pretty awesome now, and maybe your journey in that season. But then the moment happens where you kind of take a look to your left or take a look to your right, and someone else may have something a little bit better than you, right? And you begin to compare parts of your life with other people's life, right? Like we look left and right and at everyone and everything, and we kind of fall into what we could call the curse of comparison. You ever been there? You ever begin to kind of compare to the left and right? So I'd like to suggest today the cure, or the best way to overcome this curse of comparison in our lives is this: to stay in your lane. If you're taking notes today, this is the title of my talk. I want to encourage you to stay in your lane. Come on, say it with me. Stay in your lane. Now turn to your neighbor and say, stay in your lane. Yeah, just like that. Now, if you're taking notes today, there's something else I want you to write down right off the get-go. Like here's the thing. The fastest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. Would you agree with that? Like it's like your home, right? Like I don't know if you're like me. I love my home. I'm thankful for my home, but your home can be really special until you look to your friend who gets the new home, right? Or a little bit bigger home, or they get the upgrade to the home, or you begin to watch HGTV, right? And like that happens, and the fixer-upper becomes the dream home, right? And you begin to look left and right, and you get a little bit distracted, right? The fastest way to kill something special is to compare it, right? Like comparison kills contentment, right? Like this is what I know. Check it out. Where comparison begins, contentment ends. You ever been there? Right? Like, here's the deal. It's never been easier in the history of the world to like compare. Like take social media, right? Especially with social media. Like, you could pull it up, you're having a great day, right? And you pull up Instagram or you pull up Facebook or whatever, and you're like, why didn't you invite me? Right? Right? Like, why wasn't I invited, right? And why didn't I get to go there? And you see your friend, and she's like on her 4th vacation, and you can't even like afford to go to grandma's house, right? Or you're like, you see your friend, and she's sitting by the pool, right, with her toes in the air and taking pictures of her toes. Why do we do that, right? I do that all the time. It's weird, right? And they're there, and we don't like your toes, right? Right? Or your friend's out to eat, right? And there's like the steak and lobster there on the thing, and the ring is right there, right? The ring, and you're sitting at home, and your husband's in the basement playing video games, and your kid's running around the room, and you're eating leftovers, right? You know what I mean? Like comparison kills contentment. A pastor that I follow from afar, his name is Stephen Furtick. You probably heard of him if you've been around for a while. He says this, especially when it comes to social media. He says, the problem is that we're comparing our behind the scenes with everybody else's highlight reel when it comes to social media, right? Like, social media is like the highlight reel of everybody's life, and if we're not careful, we can look at it long enough and we're like, oh, my life really does suck, right? You're like, oh, yeah. If we're not careful, our contentment literally can be crushed and killed because of this comparison game, right? So in the rat race we call life, it's so easy, isn't it, to look to the right and to the left and become distracted with these comparison games. And so can I encourage you today to stay in your lane? And I'm going to try to help us understand what that looks like. And we're going to look in the Bible a little bit today. In 2 Corinthians chapter 10, we're going to go there. Let's read it together. In verse 12 of chapter 10, Paul's talking about what comparison might look like and how it affects us. And Paul says, but they are only comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as a standard of measurements. And then he goes to say what? Those two words, how ignorant. How ignorant, he encourages us, right? Paul is saying we can be so ignorant when we fall into the curse of comparison, right? This is what I began to understand this week. I want you to understand with me. Comparing makes you feel either superior or inferior, but neither honors God, right? It makes you feel either better than or less than, and neither one of those really honor God, right? You're like this past Mother's Day, you're like, you saw it, the mom that literally got it all, right? Breakfast in bed, and the kids, were pampering her all day, and you're like, all I got was legit to make my bed. That's all I got, right? And my kids are running around, I'm not even sure my kids like me, right? We begin to look, and Paul's saying how ignorant, right? It can make us feel inferior, or it can make us feel superior, like, right? I got this nice home, I got these nice clothes, I'm driving this really nice car because obviously God loves me, right? Obviously I work hard for what I got, and look at that guy who's driving that thing, right? And you're like, obviously, he doesn't love God like I do, right? He obviously doesn't work hard like I do, right? We can either feel inferior, or comparing makes us feel superior, and neither one honors God. You know, another pastor that I follow from afar, he did this message kind of around this topic. He called it the land of Ur. Andy Stanley, you maybe heard of him. The land of Ur, right? Simply, he says, everybody simply wants Ur, right? Like whatever somebody else has, we want that plus Ur, right? They want to be rich, right? We want to be happy, we want to be better, right? Yeah, stronger, faster. And listen, I want what you have plus Now, I don't know about you, if I'm most honest, I don't want just I want est, right? I want est. If we're running a race, I don't want to be just next to the guy who doesn't really know how to run very fast. I don't want to be just faster. I want to be fastest, right? Can we be honest today? I don't want to be just greater. I want to be the greatest one in the room, right? Girls, are you with me? Listen, you walk into a room, you don't just want to be the skinnier one, you want to be the skinny-est, right? You go to the gym, guys, and you don't want to be just stronger than the guy who does more rest than reps. You want to be the strong guest. We could go on and on and on about this rat race as we look to the left and to the right, and we can become distracted. But today, I want us to dive into the Bible, and I want us to look at the Gospel of John, chapter 20. And we're going to go to 20 and 21. And so if you have a Bible, you can go there. Some of the stuff I'm going to share with you is going to be on the screen. But the story I want to share with you today is not only really awesome and powerful, it's actually pretty hilarious. And I love the Bible. It can be so like relatable and real because the struggle was just as real back then as it is today, especially when it comes to comparison. So I want to go to chapter 20, and apparently there's like this little tension that's going on between two of the disciples, Peter and John. And now some theologians would say that Peter and John didn't like each other. I'm not sure it was much of a dislike as more of kind of a competition type thing, right? Like, how could they not like each other? Like, they're disciples, right? Like, right next to Jesus, hanging out all the time. And so apparently there's this competition thing. And in fact, if you look through the Gospels and you read about it, you'll see time and time again, the disciples are kind of fighting about like, who's going to sit next to Jesus. Like, I was closest to him, right? Like, who's his favorite? And so there's this little competition thing. And because they were like real guys like us. They're just like real people. But I want us to point out today that it's kind of weird because when you read the Gospel of John, John actually writes this gospel in the third person. And so you kind of read it's a little bit confusing, but John not only refers to himself in the third person, he actually calls him something. Some of you know where I'm going. Do you know what he calls himself? The one that Jesus loved, right? So as we read this today, he's writing in the third person, and he's like, he literally called himself the one that Jesus loved. I think that's pretty funny. So John, here it is, the context, just writing in the third person, the one that Jesus loved, this little competition, this little tension going on. Let me just give you a little more context of John chapter 20. It was 3 days after Jesus had died, and he was supposed to, of course, be in the tomb, right? And Mary got to the tomb, and of course the stone was rolled away, and the tomb was empty, right? And so she didn't know what to think. Like was he risen? Did somebody steal his body? Where was he? And so Mary went running back to the disciples, and here's how the story goes. Now, when I read this to you, I want you to notice how many times the Apostle John describes how he beat Peter in a foot race, this little competition. The Bible is awesome. You can't make it up, guys. Here it is. So the tomb is empty. Christ is risen. And John is like super pumped. He's all excited that he's faster than Peter. Watch this. Check it out. John chapter 20. So she, Mary, came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, which is John, remember, third person, right? Say it with me, the one that Jesus loved. Like, what a jerk, right? Well, here I am, right? And he said, they have taken the Lord out of the tomb. Let's keep reading. And we don't know where they've put him, so Peter and the other disciples, right, John, started for the tomb. Let's keep going. Both were running, Peter and John, right? But the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. Like, you can't make this up, right? He's like, it's like a scene right out, like, what a typical dude, right? It's like a scene from my house with my two boys, right? It's always a competition with them, like John's like, just in case you're wondering, Christ is risen, and I beat Peter to the tomb, right? I beat him, right? Right? Like, both were running, the Bible says, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. Let's read one more verse. Then Simon Peter came along. There it is. Where is he? Behind me. Behind him, and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen laying there, and it goes on, and it goes on, right? Like, it's literally a scene from my house. Like, Dad, I beat Connor. Dad, I beat Caleb. Dad, I beat you, right? 3 times Christ is risen and I'm faster, right? Christ is risen, he was behind me. Christ was risen and I won the race to the tomb. So that's John 20. That's fun. But let's move to John 21. Just a little context. Now, the disciples were out fishing, right? And they weren't catching anything. You maybe heard the story in John 21. They're out fishing and Jesus, right, shows up. Some guy walks in, it's Jesus, but they don't know that it's Jesus, right? And at this point they don't know, and Jesus is like, well, why don't you throw your nets on the other side, right? And so they throw the nets on the other side, and obviously because Jesus is there, what happens? They catch fish. But what's interesting here is they not only caught a bunch of fish, but of course John is like the first person to recognize it's Jesus. If you read it, it's there. He's like the first person. It's Jesus, right? Right? And of course, Peter proceeds to like jump in the water and like go after Jesus, right? As if to say, you got me last time on land, but I got you on the sea, right? And so he died. Like, John may be a better runner, but I got him on the water, boy, right? I can swim. But what happens next in this story is where I want to land today, in John chapter 21. It's like the power behind this whole passage. And Peter he had a super powerful like moment of restoration with Jesus. Now to fully understand this reinstatement that day for Peter, I want to give you just a little bit of the backstory. Before the crucifixion, Peter was like, he was pretty bold about like his love for Jesus. Like if you remember, he almost like took shots at the other disciples. Like Peter said, Jesus, I love you, right? I love you. And if all these other chumps are like unfaithful to you, I'm going to be with you to the very end, right? He's like, I've got your back. I'll never leave you. I'm going to stand by you. Like, Peter was really, really bold, right? Even implying that the other guys would deny him, but he would never, ever. But what? The little girl shows up one day, right? Shows up and comes to Peter and says, hey, aren't you one of those disciples? And he's like, no, not me. I don't even know what you're talking about, right? We actually see Peter denying Jesus 3 different times on 3 different occasions. We actually see Jesus one time overlooking Peter and seeing what's happening, and Peter noticing and how embarrassed he must have felt and brokenhearted and ashamed, right? So Jesus, the one that they think is literally the Messiah, ultimately was crucified. Now he's what? Now he's risen, and he's encountering Jesus again on this day. So, in John 21, if we read it, Jesus says, Peter, do you love me? And he's like, yeah, of course I do, right? Yes, I do. Jesus says what? Feed my sheep. Some of you heard the story before, right? Jesus says it again, do you love me? And Jesus is like, yeah. Or Peter's like, yeah, I love you, of course I do. Jesus says, feed my sheep. And then he says it, Jesus says it a third time, but he actually changes the word in Greek. And he says, do you agape love? Do you really love me? And Peter says, of course I do. That's where we pick up the story today with the few moments we have left together in verse 20 of John 21. I want us to read it together. It says, Peter turned and saw that, there it is, that what? The disciple whom Jesus loved. So he's having this encounter, right, after Jesus was risen. He's having this encounter with Jesus, and then what does Peter do? He turns. He's like, there he is, my competition. He's back, John, the one that Jesus loved, right? John the beloved. Let's keep reading. When Peter saw him, he asked, Lord, what about him? Jesus answered, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me. Did you see it? Peter asked Jesus, what about him, Lord? What about him? You told me to feed the sheep, but what about him? Like, what's his deal? What's his assignment? What did Jesus say? What's that to you, right? In other words, why are you wasting your time on him? I'm talking to you right in this moment. I'm talking to you. And Jesus says what? You must follow me. Your assignment is to follow me, Jesus says that day. Your lane is to feed my sheep. I told you to feed my sheep, Jesus says. This is what I want you to do. Feed my sheep. Don't worry about John. Do what I called you to do. Your assignment is to follow me and feed my sheep. Pathways, we need to understand something today. Here's what I'm understanding this week. Come on, let's read it. When we can't faithfully follow Jesus, if we're always comparing ourselves to someone else. You know what I mean? Like, what do they have? What are they doing? Where are they going? Why are they getting all the attention, right? We can never fully, faithfully follow Jesus if all we're doing is comparing ourselves to somebody else. So why do we do this? Why do we do it? It's because by nature, we're sinful people. Like, our sin nature takes over in our lives. And it literally takes us away from God's pursuit for us when we begin to compare in these ways. Guys, there is no external success, there's no relationship, there's no amount of money that can ever quench the inner spiritual longing that we have, that we try to quench in so many other ways. But for some reason, man, we still want more, don't we? At least I do. Or we want to be the est. Guys, we need to understand that there's not enough and there's not enough est in the entire world that can satisfy the spiritual brokenness that we have inside of us. Guys, we can't have enough money. We can't have enough likes, right? Click it. There's not enough followers, right? There's not enough attention. There's never a right relationship, a big enough house, like the perfect vacation. There's never the perfect church. Uh-oh. None of that. You can look for it, and you can look for it, and you can look for it, but there's nothing on the outside designed by God to satisfy you on the inside, except for the God who created you and me. That's why the Apostle Paul said, it's ignorant, it's stupid, it's useless, it's destructive, it's hurtful. Comparison makes you feel even inferior or superior, but neither one honors God, right? Right? I mean, are you like me, guys? I look to the external all the time, right? Like, am I worthy? Hey, tell me, did I do good enough? right? Do I belong? Am I number one? Am I the most important person in this room? Do I fit in? Do my clothes look okay, right? Guys, there's never an external answer that can ever satisfy and meet that internal need that we have. And there's a big question that we need to answer today before we're done. And we've got to get it right, or there's a good chance we could waste some really great years of our life here on earth being dissatisfied and discontent. So here's the big question today that I have for you and I have for me. Who or what is going to define my worth? Who or what? And can I be real honest with you today? Some of us, and this includes me, this is an us thing today. Some of us are living for a dad who's no longer living. Some of us today are living for a mom who lived their life through you. Some of you, you're living for an ex-spouse, like I'll show him or I'll show her. Some of us are living for our friends. We're living for them, whoever them is, right? I don't even know who them is. But who is going to define your worth? Who or what is going to bring meaning and confidence in your life? Now, I get it. Some of you today you've been following Jesus for a really long time, and you know the answer. It's like when I was hanging out in Pathways Kids a lot, and like I'd ask a question, and it's if the kid shouted God or Jesus, it's a pretty good chance they're gonna get the answer right? So the question is who's gonna define your worth? Some of you have been around for a while and you're like, I know the answer, Chris, thanks. But for some of us, the answer is super obvious and it's powerful. But if your answer to that big question is anything besides Jesus, man, can I suggest to you today that you may be running a race that you will never truly win? Can I help? You may never truly win when you look left and right at the external distractions of this world. But some of you, you're here and you're following Jesus and you don't get a pass today. I'm with you. I've been following Jesus since I was like forever, like little. And some of you here today and you've been following Jesus, but you find yourself so easily distracted with small, simple swerves to the left and to the right. Small, subtle, simple swerves just to the left and to the right, and you get off track. Man, I've been there. And for some of you today, you're here, and it's glaringly obvious to you, right? Like there was a time when you were following Jesus, and you showed up here today, but for whatever reason, like Peter, you got distracted. And maybe like Peter, you're sitting here today, and you feel like you're not worthy to run in that lane ever again. You're like, I'm messed up too bad. Like you better like use John instead of me, right? Guys, can I encourage us today, wherever you are today, wherever you find your journey, let me encourage you with God's word. The Apostle Paul encourages us in Hebrews chapter 12 to run. What does it say? Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. The Apostle Paul is saying, run. Do you realize that you've got a race marked out for you? Like there's a calling on your life. There's a mission, a job, a lane for every single one of us to run in. Now, if you've ever run track, you know what I'm about to say, but the fastest way to lose the race is what? Looking this way or that way. And a split second could literally mean win or loss. What do? We keep our eyes on the on the prize, right? We run with perseverance, with the eternal focus, not looking to the left or to the right. We stay in our lane. Paul goes on later and kind of continues this race theme in 1 Corinthians. Can we read it together? So run to win. 1 Corinthians 9:24. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with purpose in every step. He says what? Run to win. Run with purpose in every step. Take steps of purpose in your lane, not looking to the left and to the right and the distractions and the comparisons that come along the way. Because guys, if we continue to look left and right, we run the risk of living our life searching for true contentment. Remember, where comparison begins, contentment ends. But here's the good news today. When we make a choice to overcome the comparison games in our lives and stay in our lane, the lane that God has marked out for us, confidence is built. Here's what I'd like to suggest. When comparison ends, confidence begins. And some of you today, you need some confidence. Let's go ahead together today and let's bust through and overcome the curse of comparison in our lives, and let's build some stronger confidence. Confidence in the one who literally set out to complete the work in you and through you from the beginning of time to the end of time. The one, Jesus, right? Paul, the writer of Philippians, he writes this. He says what? He says, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Guys, you know what that means to me? It's not too late for you. It's not, and it's certainly not too early for some of us. It's not too late. You may have gotten distracted and switched lanes and been chasing and racing after all the wrong stuff, and that's okay. So did Peter. And Jesus is saying to you today, like he said to Peter that day, when he found himself doing what? Looking over his shoulder, comparing himself to John. Just as he said to Peter that day, he's saying to you, feed my sheep. Stay in your lane. Don't worry about John. Don't worry about the past. You don't need to look over your shoulder any longer. You don't need to find your worth in all those other ways. Jesus says, come on, stay in your lane. Run your race. The race that I've marked out for you. So Pathways, today with the last few moments we have together, can we go ahead and bust through the curse of comparison together? And let's find confidence today. Confidence in the one that wants to carry his work to completion through you. No matter where you're at. No matter where you're at. It's confidence that comes when we overcome the curse of comparison and we stay in our lane and we run to win. Let's check out this video and we'll come back and pray together. Thanks.
The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me, they stumbled and fell. Though a host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this I will be confident. I've got a promise. Turning back is not an option. There's a calling on my life, and I'm not about to drop it. I got this. For this I was chosen. The final word over me was spoken before I was born. I have a purpose that goes far beyond what I want, what I feel, what I see, and what they say cannot be. With God, all things are possible. And when my desire aligns with the divine, I am unstoppable. In this, I will be confident. Of course the climb is hard. I'm not surprised. The dream is difficult by design to make sure I rely on His might, not mine. His plan, not mine. His hand, not mine. My assignment was conceived in His heart, His mind. And the blessing ahead will always be greater than the battle behind. So this is not the time to compromise or entertain 1,000 lies and a million reasons why I can't, or it won't, or it's not, or I'll never. I've heard it before, so shut up, devil. God didn't say He'd make it easy. He said He'd make me better, make me strong, and give me grace to carry on. No matter what the opposition, I only need one weapon. I have the faith to overcome. In this, I will be confident. I'm too close to quit, and the stakes are too great for me to hesitate. So whatever it costs, whatever it takes, I'll keep coming. I show up, take the shot with my hands shaking. The fear is real, but it won't break me. God will not fail me, nor forsake me. I'll keep coming. I'll step to the battle like it's already won. Like I got the enemy on the run. I speak and believe like it's already done. In this, I will be confident. He made me a promise. He gave me a calling. I know that He's able to keep me from falling. I focus my hope. My excuses are gone. The moment to prove the power of God is come. He made me a promise. He gave me a calling. I know that He's able to keep me from falling. I focus my hope. The past is gone. The moment to prove the power of God has come. In this, I will be confident. Time is now. The odds are long. The haters are loud. The pressure is on. But devil, you messed with the wrong one. I got my sling. I got my stone. And in the name of my God, I will overcome. In this, I will be confident.
Yeah. Pathways, can we stand to our feet to close our time together? And today, I don't know, again, where you're at in your journey, but this little spoken word this last year has been instrumental in my life. Some of you know my story. I've overcome some stuff in my own life and continually in progress of overcoming, and this is just on play. This was just on repeat for me this last year, and I would love for you to find it if you're like, yeah, that's awesome. I'd love to kind of make that a rhythm of my life. Just email me, chrisk@pathwayschurch.us. I'd love to find this for you, and you can find it on YouTube as well, and hopefully it'll help you as well. Just keeping the promises of God in the forefront of your ears and of course your heart. But can we just bow our heads and our hearts to close in prayer together? God, I know that all of us in this place understand that the struggle is real, and for some of us, we may be in a season where we're just like, life is good, but God, remind us of those subtle swerves that distract us. God, remind us of those moments where we kind of find ourselves left and right. God, bring us back to a place that we know that we're called to run a race straight, God, into your head and your heart for us, God. And God, I just want to pray a special prayer for all of my friends in here that may be a little bit like Peter today, may have found a little distraction along the way and may feel like they may not even be good enough to get back in the game and run in their lane. Jesus, would you reinstate, would you restore by your power and your love and your grace even right now? God, those that have walked into this place today and feel less than, or they may be finding their worth in other stuff or themselves, God, may by the power of your word through Jesus today, may we overcome that. And Jesus, by your love and grace, reinstate us, restore us, just as you did Peter that day. God, finally, my final prayer today is for some of us here that have never put our trust in our faith. We put our confidence in so many other things. Maybe today, God, for the very first time, we'll just turn our heart and deposit, God, a new trust in you. May we put our confidence in you. And maybe even right now, Jesus, we'd say, come into our life and change me on the inside. I believe in you and what you did for me, not just a story in the Bible, but for me in my life. And if that's you today, come on, just make that your prayer. Just say, Jesus, change me on the inside. Maybe for the very first time, Jesus, I put my faith and my trust in you. Now, God, for every single one of us in here, as we journey through this series of Overcomer, God, as we tackle some of the hidden issues in our life, God, may we truly be more than conquerors, more than overcomers, God, because not in our own strength, not just because there's some words coming off of this stage, but God, may your gospel change us, Jesus, to overcome this week. We love you. Thanks for loving us first. In Jesus' name, amen.